All right, just making sure we are all set up. All right. Looks like we are. Hey everybody. So, welcome to the first of many of these trainings that I'm going to post live for you guys. So, if you're here live with me, please chat and interact. It helps me feel like I'm not alone just talking to the computer. But if you're watching it on the replay, then I hope that you get value out of this. So I'm going to start doing these weekly. I don't know, I'm the business cowgirl, so maybe we could come up with some kind of fun name, like the rodeo, like a rodeo, or something along those lines for these trainings. But we'll do that later. First, let's just get to the good stuff. In today's training, I'm going to teach you guys how to 5x your productivity from your meetings, whether they are internal or with clients, through these 3 secrets. And that's going to be without sacrificing your client results or letting, just the stuff that happens in the meetings slip through the cracks of your productivity and your ability to make those meetings, that time, count. So if you're a service-based business that has a lot of meetings on your calendar, this is the training for you, because actually, we're going to go over a study that the Harvard Business Review did, and the results to me are just kind of shocking. Without further ado, let's stop rambling about what we're going to talk about today and figure out how to get you 10 hours back in your work week. So if that sounds good, give me a yes in the chat, fire emoji, let's a cowboy hat, let's dive in. So let's first start by playing just a little game. Now, would you rather, pretty simple and straightforward, but would you rather, with the 10 hours back that you're going to get in your week, would you rather use that time to make more sales or get more leads or, help more clients, or would you rather use that extra 10 hours to relax? Because imagine this. Imagine your 40-hour work week is actually done in 30 hours. You really would have 10 extra hours. Now, that might sound too good to be true, but by the end of this training, you're going to know exactly how to get those 10 hours back. So let's dream a little bit before we dive into the good stuff. What would you do with those 10 extra hours? Because there's 2 options here. You could use those 10 extra hours to have more human hours, and less work hours, or you could use those 10 hours to drive more sales in your business. So the choice really is yours, but the most important thing we're going to learn today is how to give you those 10 hours back in your day. Well, back in your week. So before we dive into all the information that I've gathered for you to help you get the best bang for your buck from your meetings, first, let me just say that I've been helping businesses for the last more than 8 years now, actually, improve their workflows through optimizing their tech stack. Sometimes it looks like, getting different tech or utilizing the tech you have differently. But sometimes it actually looks like revamping your workflow and your process in your business, which is just basically how you do your work. Now, through the combination of both, though, is how you can actually get time back in your week, because you're actually using your time, you're working smarter, not harder. I know it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. So as I said, the Harvard Business Review did a study on meetings, and they polled a bunch of CEOs about both internal and client meetings. It wasn't specific on it was B2B, but it wasn't specific. So they said that 65% of the respondents said meetings actually keep them from the work that they're supposed to be doing. Now, I was a consultant for those 8 years, and I can totally agree with that, because what was happening was you'd be in these meetings and you're collecting notes from the client, or even if you're on internal meetings, you're gathering things that you need to be doing. However, instead of doing the things, you're just talking about doing the things. Now, of course, some meetings are necessary for you to have that face-to-face time, but really the question then becomes, when are you actually going to get that work done? Because if you spend 8 hours in meetings all day, that's the day. So you actually have to have a balance. And so it means that you need to make the meetings you have more effective and productive, which is what 73 or 71% of the respondents said, that their meetings are unproductive and inefficient. So you may feel like that. In the last business that I worked for, I definitely felt like that. The meetings were just draining my day not for no reason, but for not good reasons. And everything that I'm going to teach you in this training can help that business. Wink, wink. So 64% said that meetings come at the expense of deep thinking. Now, there is nothing worse than not being able to be innovative. And Jira at Atlassian, I think is how you say their company name, but Jira, if you're familiar with it, their company has a policy where one day a week, they're not supposed to do any work for the business. They are just supposed to be innovative. And there is something really, truly special with that, because when it comes to having ideas, there's this phenomenon. I was actually learning this from somebody who studied psychology, that it's the concept of shower ideas, but it's why the best ideas come when you're in the shower. And it's because when you're in the shower, your conscious is turned off. You're not taking in any new information. So it gives you an opportunity to be creative and innovative. And that's why all your best ideas come to you when you're in the shower, which I actually, when I learned that, I was kind of like, okay, that sounds like so like duh, but it's when you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh, like that makes so much sense. And so the reality is that if you're in meetings all day and you're constantly thinking about what you have to do, you're never taking the time to be quiet and listen and actually come up with new innovative ideas that potentially could be, how can we do this more effectively? How can we do this more efficiently? How can we do this more productively? So 64% said that it was keeping them from, being innovative. And then 62% said meetings miss opportunities to bring the team closer together. Now, of course, there is, when I've been working remote for like 3 years, even before COVID. So when COVID happened and everybody was kind of freaking out about remote work, I'd already been doing it for a long time. It's pretty like normal for me. So I'm used to having like that distance between like my coworkers and I, but thinking about meetings not bringing people closer together, I feel like if you found a way to make your meetings for your business more productive, then one of those 10 hours could be, culture building or company, like team bonding type style meetings, but, a time where we all meet together. And being that would give you an opportunity to bring your team closer together in a fun way because you have 10 extra hours to play around with. So before we dig into the actual secrets, who is this for? So if you're a service-based business that has meetings with clients, or you're a service-based business that has an internal team that has meetings either about your clients or with your clients, it doesn't really matter. If your business runs on meetings from, and even just remote work. So if you're a business that functions through Zoom, let's just say, there's a lot of them, but Zoom, then this is for you. Because if your business is based on meetings, then chances are you're letting a lot of time slip through the cracks on very unproductive activities that are directly related to meetings. And then if you're a coach, a consultant, or an agency, these are typical businesses that have a lot of client face-to-face time, but then also you usually have like project management style teams where you have like client teams or client work, and people need to come together not only with the client, but internally to discuss what needs to be done. And like I said, if you're just somebody who has lots of client meetings or team meetings every single week, then this is for you. Because if you want to get your clients better results faster, then you have to find a way to bridge the time between when your meeting is done and the service is delivered. Now, the one thing that stands between that time frame that always has to happen is after a meeting is done, there is usually some sort of note consolidation, action item tracking. Like you'd have to, for instance, what it looked like for me was after our client meetings, I would have to go into Jira and make tasks for everything that was collected from the client meeting, and then assign those tasks, estimate those tasks, and go so on and so forth. But a lot of project management work that was a follow-up, and it wasn't even just that I had to make these tasks in Jira, I also had to take the notes that I was taking and turn them into tasks. So imagine in a world where you're having a meeting, you can fully focus on the client, you don't have to take physical notes, and after the meeting is done, you have a tool that's going to quarterback your meeting. And not only is it going to transcribe the entire meeting, but it's also going to pull the action items that were discussed during the call and automatically assign them and put them into your CRM or your client relations management system, because there's lots of them: Monday, Asana, Trello, Jira. There's tons of them. So it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of you setting this up so that it gives you the productivity that you're seeking. Here is something that everybody misses when it comes to efficient workflows. The reality is that if you save yourself 10 hours a week, yes, you have saved that time. And like I asked you in the beginning, would you rather use that time to be more human, or would you rather use that time to do more work? That's totally up to you. But here's what people miss, because yes, you get the 10 hours back. Say you're $100 an hour as a consultant, then that means you literally get $1,000 back a week just in the time you've saved. But let's say you did the rather, meaning that you wanted to do more work for those 10 hours that were returned. Well, let's say you took 10 more sales calls, sold 5 more people, and your cost, or your sales price is $500. That means that you actually made not only the $1,000 from the 10 hours back, because you did 30 hours of work or 40 hours of work in 30 hours, you also made $2,500 from the additional work that you were able to put in, meaning that you actually did 50 hours of work in 40 hours. And the reality is, if you can get the same results in less time, that is you winning in your business. The challenge is that this is not some sort of default programming that comes with your tech. When somebody is selling you tech, they're telling you that it can do this, not that it automatically can do this. There's a big difference between you being able to use tech to your advantage and determining what is the best way for you to use it to your advantage. That sounds a little convoluted, but we're going to go ahead and dig into that, and you're going to understand wholeheartedly by the end of this presentation how to get those 10 hours that I've been dangling like a carrot on a stick. So what if I told you that you didn't have to make agendas anymore? What if I told, for your meetings, what if I told you that you didn't have to take notes? Sometimes when you're on a meeting and a client is talking, you're sitting there and you're trying to listen, you're trying to make sure that you track everything they're saying, you're trying to make sure that you're not missing anything. But what if I told you that you didn't have to do that anymore? And what if I told you that you didn't have to create those follow-up tasks? Like I was saying, what if all of your follow-up tasks were not only automatically created, but they were also automatically put into however you task manage your projects for your clients, and you literally, all you have to do is show up to the meeting and be productive. That's it. That's all you have to do. You just have to show up. And this applies to not only service delivery, but also sales as well, because salespeople have a lot of calls, and that you guys are notorious. I've worked with a lot of sales teams. You guys are notorious for not wanting to put notes into a CRM. And so what if I told you that you didn't have to do that anymore? Anybody who's a sales manager that's listening to this training just went, oh my God, please tell me how. So here is the first secret. The first secret is that the tool isn't the hero, but the process is. So the reality is, it's not what you do, but how you do it, and not what tech you use to get it done. Because I have seen people use a spreadsheet more efficiently than, say, someone else was using Salesforce, because Salesforce is something that needs to be developed to custom fit your business. And a spreadsheet does also need to be custom developed, but it takes a lot less tech know-how to get you there. So the reality is that it's how you do your work that's going to be paramount over in terms of your productivity, instead of the tech that you're using. Because especially with AI nowadays, everyone is just like, oh my gosh, AI this, AI that, I want this AI, I want that AI. And did you know the average number of softwares a business uses is 17 now? And I just think that's nuts. How can you actually plan to be efficient if you're managing 17 different softwares, where all of the data that you'd need to make sound decisions for your business is in 17 different places? let's not even go there. That could be a rant that would be as long as this training altogether. It's really about using the right tools in the right way. And that's going to look differently for every single business. And one thing I will say after all of my years of consulting is there's no wrong answer on a tech stack. The only way you're wrong is if you're using the tools wrong, like inefficiently. But there is no wrong answer. Like, it doesn't make like one business more qualified to use Salesforce than another. If Salesforce is the one you want to use, if Zoho's the one you want to use, if HubSpot's the one you want to use, there is no wrong answer there. It's just a matter of you using that tool to the best of your ability based on what your business requires. And the reason that you might not be using the tech to the best of your ability is because old habits are going to hold you back. If you or anyone else in your company says, well, this is just the way we've always done it. If that sentence is uttered anytime during your work week, then your business by definition is being held back, because just because it's the way you've always done it does not mean that it's the right way to do it or the best way to do it. So old habits really will hold your business back from the future it could potentially have, not only in present day, but it's actually going to prohibit you from scaling in the future. Sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest impacts. Like, for instance, I was helping one company where they were having issues with their CRM. And it was very interesting because everybody was complaining about, oh, this and that. And all I did was I created an internal ticketing system for them, right? And it was something that was default programming from the CRM that they were using. And I just got it set up and I said, okay, anytime anybody has an issue, go ahead and submit a ticket. And what was really interesting was when the ticketing system did not exist internally, everybody was like, oh my gosh, nothing works. Once the ticketing system was set up, all of a sudden everybody was like, well, now I have a place where I could go submit a ticket. So they felt comfort by the fact that somebody would be able to help them, or that they had a place to go ask for help. And it made such a big impact in the business's culture and how they approached the tech they were using, that it was such a small change and it took very little lift on my part to build out, but it made such a huge impact to not only the workflow itself, but the way they approached the work that they were doing. And so never doubt or never think that a small change could be like, it could just be the one thing your team needs to have a more productive approach to the work that you guys are doing. Because if you have a workflow that is not working for your team, for instance, all the stuff that they were complaining about, right? If you have a broken workflow, the reality is that the tech isn't going to save you in the first place anyway. So if you took your business and you took all the tech out of it, right? You and I are just having a word conversation and you were describing, okay, we do this and then we do that and then we do this and then we do that and then the client does this and then I need that and blah, 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 right? So on and so forth. So you're telling me how your business works. And if your business, if there is a part of what you're describing where there's a big gaping hole, right? So for instance, you have two different tech softwares that you're using to do the same task, or there's a part where there's an automated workflow, but then no human gets notified that the automated process happens. So then the next thing doesn't happen because nobody is even told that the automation occurred. So the reality is, if you're telling me about your business and what it does and how it does it, then if you have a huge gaping hole in one of your processes, now, of course, we could set up tech that would fix the hole. But if you don't have that set up, then a broken process is never going to be fixed by more tech. It's still going to be broken. It's still going to have a huge gaping hole. And which is the key to everything, because if you have a hole in your tech stack, then the reality is you just have to revamp your steps. You just have to go back to, as I said, the words of it all, not the tech, the words of it all, and outline what each step is in your process. Now, when you do that, you're going to find the holes by default, because you're going to say, okay, well, we do this and then we do this, but this happens over here and this happens over here. And then the next inevitable question is, okay, well, how did these two talk to each other? And if the answer is they don't, then there's your hole. But by knowing that then means you know exactly where you need to plug this hole. And then the next step is finding the right person to plug the hole. But I'm getting a little off in the weeds and talking about workflows in general, but this happens with meetings as well, because what happens is people have their days stacked with meetings, and if you have back-to-back meetings, then by definition, you're not in the middle of like going from meeting with client A to client B to client C. If they're back to back to back, then you're not going and, recording those tasks that need to be done that were discussed by client A, right? You'd have to wait until all of these meetings are done, and then you have to go and make all these tasks. And so when it comes to looking at gaps in the process, that gap is that you may have tasks that fall through the cracks because you don't have any time to reset, to take a time out and be like, okay, I need to wrap up what I was just doing with client A before I start with client B. Now, this was my day-to-day for multiple years. And so I'm not speaking, this is just how the business I was in operated as a Salesforce consultant, but this does speak to a larger issue when it comes to meetings, and that is that if you have a process where people can literally schedule back-to-back meetings on your calendar, you always run the risk of not being able to tie up loose ends, let's say, on the first call before the second call starts. Even if you give yourself a 10-minute buffer, I mean, that's not really enough time. And especially if, gosh forbid, you have to go to the bathroom or something, it's just not enough time for you to truly reset. So how can you use tech to plug that hole? Now, I do want to assure you that you can do this even if tech scares you, because the real important aspect of what you need to do to make your workflows more efficient and get those 10 hours back is you have to actually start with the steps of your process, meaning starting with how somebody schedules a meeting with you, meaning is there a web page? Is there a Calendly link? Is it in your the signature of your email? However you have people sign up for meetings with you. It starts with the moment they sign up and then walks through every single step before they show up for the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting is over, and everything you need to do after a meeting has concluded, till the point that you feel like, okay, that's everything I need to do for this meeting, and on to the next. So if there's any inefficiency in the process you have laid out, then it's not going to be the tech that's failing you. It's the process. And so the first step is to make sure that you have your process very clearly mapped out. Now, if you have a solidified and efficient process, then that's how you're going to, and the reason I used conversion rate is because the conversion rate doesn't necessarily mean sales. I mean, for salespeople it does, but it can also mean for client satisfaction, for everything that somebody expects when a meeting is going on, even if it's an internal one, because the conversion rate on an internal meeting is company culture. And did everybody come out of that meeting having the company culture more solidified? The conversion rate could really be anything. So when it comes to the process, the way that you increase your ROI on whatever process you have is to first solidify how you do the work, and then we're going to add the right tech for what you're trying to build. And the reason that tech shouldn't scare you is because tech Tech is like a diet pill. The reality of adding more tech to a broken process, and like adding in a diet pill for somebody who needs to lose weight, is in the moment it might work, or in the moment it might have an immediate effect, but then it's never going to have a long-term sustaining effect, because the fact is that it's a Band-Aid. It's a quick fix. It's not an actual change. So the first way that you lose weight is to change your diet, right? You actually have to change the food that you're putting into your body, because if you take diet pills and you still eat fast food, then it's never going to have the outcome that you're looking for. And that's the same thing with tech. With AI, everybody wants to just add AI to a process that isn't working. Like, for instance, if you're a business that functions on all-day meetings, that's not an actual workflow that's sustainable. And so the only way to fix it is to actually change what you're doing. And one way to do that is to alleviate some of the work that comes along with having multiple meetings in one day, and sometimes, like I said, having them back to back. So this third secret is that it is not the tech that's holding you back. And I know everybody wants to blame, like, oh, if only we had, or if only it could, or blah, 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 blah. The reality is that you're the expert on your business. You're the one that knows what your business needs and how to make your workflows awesome. But the tech really should only be there to make it go faster. So there's this analogy I always love, because with bartenders, right? Everybody, you could go to 5 different bars, order the same drink, and the 5 different bartenders are going to serve you, quite frankly, 5 different drinks, even if you're ordering the exact same drink in every single bar. And I've always found this fascinating, because every single bartender has the exact same recipe, they have the exact same ingredients, and they have the exact same tools for the most part, right? So what makes all those drinks different? And that is the mixer. And so the mixologist, right? The actual person, right? So you are the person who is the expert in your business, and you're the one who can come up with the best workflow for your business. And the tech side of it, you just have to find the right bartender for your tech stack. And that is a specific skill outside of knowing your business and exactly what your business needs to function. And that is how you actually work smarter, not harder. I know it's a total cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. You wouldn't build a house without an architect. And it's the same thing with the tech in your business. You do not need to be a tech expert to make the right process work for your business. But it's not about the process that you build. It's how you actually facilitate that process that's going to determine whether or not you're going to be able to get these 10 hours back in your work week. So I hope this has gotten the creative juices flowing for you on your specific workflows and processes, especially as it pertains to your internal or your client meetings. So before we sign off, I just want to give you a few tools, specific tools and examples of how different tech can save you time. And then it's up to you to decide what is the workflow that you need to build. And then it becomes, okay, and how do I find the tech that's going to build that for me? So before we sign off, I just want to tell you about a few specific AI tools that you can implement into your meeting workflow that's going to do a lot of the things that I've been talking about in this training. Now, of course, it is going to be how you actually implement these things. And just for the record, I don't get any sort of commission on any of these things. I'm just telling you examples of tools you can be using that's going to do X, Y, or Z, right? So we've talked about with meetings, there's 3 different times that you can actually save time, or that you can save this 10 hours. The first one being before the meeting, during the meeting, and then after the meeting. So there are tools for automated agenda creation, which is like Fellow or Avoma, which is going to look at previous meetings, and then it's going to create an agenda based on the CRM record that you have, either for your client or your team or however you're tracking your data. So it can automatically create agendas for you. And then that's something that you don't have to do. All you have to do is show up for the meeting, because a way to save time on meetings is to make sure that everybody knows why you're there and it's very clearly outlined. what the purpose of meeting is. And that's the first most basic way to make your meetings more productive. So the second piece being during the meeting. So there are tools like Avoma and Otter that will not only record, like video record the meeting that you're having, but it'll also automatically transcribe every single word that is spoken in that meeting. And from the transcription, it's actually going to pull out the tasks and the action items that were discussed. And bonus, if you're able to actually use the AI to take those tasks that it pulls out and automatically transfer them to, say, Jira or Trello or Asana or Monday or however you manage your internal or client work. Because it's going to save you so much follow-up and admin time. If one, you don't have to take notes while you're in the call. You can actually just more productively listen because you already know that there's somebody in your corner taking the notes and transcribing the meeting as you're going. So no matter what, you're never going to miss anything because you can always go back and figure out what was said if you forget or if you miss something. So between the AI taking the notes for you, creating the action items, and then actually creating the tasks, I know from being a project manager for so many years that would have saved me 10 hours alone for how many meetings that I was having. But for you, maybe you're not taking as many meetings as I was taking. And so it's going to at least save you 5 hours a week, because then all you have to do is log into the CRM or the whatever task management system you're using, and the tasks are just waiting there for you. They're already created because in the meeting it already pulled out what the key elements were. And of course, there is like a pro tip here, because once you start using this system, you're actually going to get good at calling out action items. So for instance, if you're having a meeting and somebody says, well, it'd be nice if, and you're like, well, that's cool. That means that what we need to do is, and blah, 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 blah. So you're almost dictating the action items to the AI so that it actually is, it's not going to have to guess. It's going to know because you're literally prefacing what you're saying with how you would write that action item. So you can do this all in once, which means you don't have to do the work twice. You just do the meeting once and everything is already collected and consolidated for you. And then, of course, through automation and an actual tech setup that's working for you and not against you, then it's going to save you so many hours. It's not even funny. Like, even putting together this meeting, I was crying a little bit on the inside, knowing how much time I wasted actually having to do work, redo work, and doing more admin work again. And then not only just following up with the internal team for the tasks we needed to do, but also following up with the client to make sure that I also communicated, yes, we did get the tasks, and yes, we are going to do the work, and all of this. It was obviously client relation building, and I was really good at that, but it was a lot of time that could have been spent actually doing the work. And while it was important, AI could be doing that for you. So the third thing is smart scheduling. So obviously, once you're done with a meeting, then creating the next meeting time is always hard, especially when you have more than one stakeholder in a room. And there are AI tools that can actually help you schedule your meetings in advance, but also by just reading everybody else's calendar. And so it makes it really easy for when it comes to scheduling another meeting, you don't actually have to do anything because AI is just going to read the calendars and say, okay, everybody's free at this time. And that would have saved me. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you how much time that would have saved me. And Reclaim is one of them. Clockwise is another one. These are tools that you can be using in the background that don't need a ton of attention. They're just going to help you on these tiny little workflows that your business may have. And it's going to save you so much time in the long run having to do work, redo work, all this admin stuff can be automated through AI. And after you go through your process, you figure out exactly what your business needs and you revamp your process with the right tools. That's what's going to add up to those 10 hours. So if you're interested in finding these 10 hours for your business, then like I said, you need the right bartender. And I was a bartender for a very long time, but now I am a business mixologist instead of a liquid one. If you're interested in not sacrificing your results or details when it comes to your client work, and if you're ready for the right process and the right tools, then all it takes is 10 minutes. So we can figure out the fastest way to get you those 10 hours back. Then click the link below. Depending on if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, I know after this is done, then I'm going to repost it in a few different places. But there is a link down below, and I'll put a link on the screen so that you can easily sign up for a 10-minute call so that you and I can figure out how to save you 10 hours a week. Because like I said, it's not just getting those 10 hours back. It's what you could do with those 10 hours that is going to be a complete and total game changer for your business. Now I'm going to bring us back to the would you rather question. Now that we've had this entire conversation, I've opened your mind to some of the different tech tools and what they can actually do for your meeting workflow. You know, all the people that were, I wish I could give this training to all the people that were polled in that Harvard Business Review study. But I aspire to help humans use technology to be able to be more human, because everyone's afraid of AI taking their job. But if you used AI to do some of your job, I mean, seriously, literally, if you use AI in a smart way, the main benefit that you get from that is you get more time to be more human. And I personally use this extra time to hang out with my horses, and I'll show you a picture. All I want from all these trainings that I'm going to make, this is just going to be the first of many. Next week, you're not going to want to miss, because I'm going to reveal 3 secrets to 10x your content creation. So I hope you've enjoyed this training to optimize your meetings. And I really hope that even if you don't choose to work with me to optimize your tech stack, then you do choose to work with some other bartender out there that's going to help you optimize your workflows, because the reality is that you can get back that time. And even if you don't want to use it to do more work, you can use it to do anything. And so the first step is for you to believe that it's actually possible to get that time back. So if you want, I am here to help. That call is free, and it's linked below. And the worst case scenario, you spend 10 minutes with me and I tell you how to fix it. Best case scenario, I then help you audit your actual tech stack and give you a plan forward. But choice is up to you. I hope this has helped, and check out some of those AI tools I was telling you about. Like I said, nothing I was talking about, I don't get commission on any of it. It's really just to help you determine your best move for your business. So comment down below, or LinkedIn, or wherever you see this, comment what you think we should call these weekly trainings, because I am the business cowgirl, aka Alyssa, and I will see you on the next one.